Okay, today we are going to discuss about this file allocation methods and then index allocation. These are the two things mainly we need to cover today. If the time permits, I will start mass storage overview and then
Ma'am, voice is not audible, ma'am.
voice not audible. Okay. Is it clear now? Is it clear now?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. In the today's class, we are going to discuss about the file allocation methods. There is a problem with let me check. So this is the first topic we are going to cover today. What is a file? File is a collection of related information. Okay, where the file stores, the file is stored in the secondary memory called disk. Okay, that means operating system allocates memory for the files. Where it allocates memory? It allocates memory in the secondary memory called disk. Okay, so what for the operating system allocates memory for the files? There are two main reasons for allocating memory to the files. So what are the two reasons for allocating the memory to the files on the disk by the operating system? There is the first one is for better space utilization. If we have a file allocation methods, then operating system can better utilize the space in the secondary memory. That is the first goal. And the second goal is for accessing the files in a faster manner. Right? So what is a file? File is a collection of records. Where the file is stored? The file is stored in the secondary memory. Who allocates memory to the file? The operating system allocate memory to the file by using some file allocation methods. So what for the operating system using the file allocation methods? The first goal is for better space utilization and the second goal is for accessing the files in a faster manner. Okay. So in that file allocation methods, totally we have three types. The first one is contiguous allocation. Contiguous allocation method. And the second one is linked allocation. And the third one is indexed allocation. So these are the three allocation methods we have. The first one is a contiguous allocation method, and the second one is a linked allocation method, and the third one is a indexed allocation method. So let me explain you one after the other. The first one is a contiguous allocation. So in the case of contiguous allocation, so as the name indicates, the file is stored in the contiguous blocks. The secondary memory disk have so many number of blocks. Okay, we are storing the files in that particular blocks. Okay, if it is a contiguous allocation method, operating system allocates memory to the files in a contiguous blocks. For example, a file, there is a file called file 1. File 1. So what is the size of the file? The size of the file is, for example, 20 KB. And next, each block, the disk has so many number of blocks, right? Each block size is, for example, 4 KB. Okay, then how many number of blocks required to store the file? The file size is 20 KB and each block size is 4 KB. Okay, so that we require 5 blocks to store the file in the secondary memory. Okay, 5 blocks we require. Why? Because each block size is 4. 4 5s are 20. So that in order to store the file 1 in the disk, we require 5 blocks. Right? The 5 blocks need to be in the contiguous location. Where they are need to be available? The operating system allocates 5 contiguous blocks. For example, if it is the disk, so this is the hard disk. These are the number of blocks. Three, four, five, and then 6th block, 7th block, and then 8th block. Okay. If it is a contiguous allocation, what we require? In order to store the file 1, we require 5 contiguous blocks. So then obviously these are the blocks, maybe 3 blocks. 1, 3, 4, and then 5. So these are the blocks, contiguous blocks allocated to the file. These 5 blocks are allocated to file 1. Okay, so that is about contiguous allocation. So what is the problem in the contiguous allocation? The problem in the contiguous allocation is difficult to find the contiguous blocks. And the next problem is the first problem. The first problem is difficult to find free contiguous blocks. So that is the problem number 1. And what is the second problem? External fragmentation. External fragmentation is the second problem. Okay, what is the problem of the contiguous allocation? The first problem is it is very difficult to find the free contiguous blocks in the disk. And the second problem is the external fragmentation. Let's say, for example, this is the disk. So this is the hard disk. For example, these are the blocks. These are the blocks: 4th block, 5th block, and then 6th block, 7th block, 8th block, 9th block, 10th block, and then 11th block. These are the blocks. Okay. So for example, there are 2 files. Okay. For example, there are 3 files. File allocation table will gives us some information. What is the information? What is the file name? For example, there is a file name called A, and next to where the file A starts. In which block the file A starts? It starts in the first block. And next, what is the length of the file? For example, file A is of 3 block size. So it may be a 3. And there is another file called B, where it starts, maybe it starts at sixth block. What is the length of that particular file? Maybe 2 blocks. And next one C. So where it starts, maybe it starts from ninth block. What is the size of the block file C? 2. So observe here, file A will start at block number 1. So this is for file A. Where it starts? It starts from block number 1. So block number 1 and block number 2 and block number 3 occupied by the file A. So all these three things are continuous blocks. So how can we say that it will end at 3? So the ending block number is not represented here. Here 3 means from 1 you need to count 3. 1, 2, 3. So 3 number of blocks. Like that for file B starts at 6th block. Where is the 6th block? This is the 6th block. Okay. And next, what is the length of the file B? 2. So 6, 1, 7, 1. So 2. 1 plus 1, 2 blocks. So this is for B. And that means these 2 blocks are for B. These 3 contiguous blocks are for A. And then coming to file C. So where it starts? It starts at 9th block. And next, what is the size of the file C? 2 blocks. So 9 plus 1, sorry, 9 and 10 are the 2 blocks. So this is the file C. Okay. So if you observe here, 0th block, 4th block, 5th block, and 8th block, and 11th block. These blocks are vacant. All these blocks are free blocks. If you observe here, there is only one free block left. And next, that such a small file may not be entered into the secondary memory for the allocation. So at that time, what happened? All these files, for example, 0th file. So 0th file cannot be used for the contiguous memory location. Why? Because there is no other continuous file available here. Like that, after 8, there is no other file. Before 8, there is no other file for the contiguous allocation. These blocks are leftover blocks. And those blocks may not be useful for the contiguous memory location. Why? Because whenever there is a file with a size 1, and when any file requires only one block of memory, then only we can use these particular leftover blocks. So that is the problem called as external fragmentation. External fragmentation means some blocks will be left over in the secondary memory, and those blocks are not at all used for the allocation purpose. Okay. So file allocation purpose. So those blocks are not at all used. Why? Because they are not contiguous here in this particular example. There are no contiguous memory allocations after the free block or before the free block. We cannot find any free blocks before it or after it. If you find the 0th block, we cannot find any free block before it and after it. Like that, if we go for 8th block, here also there is no free block, prior free block, or there is no free block after it. If you go for the 11, there is no free block prior to it, and there is no free block after it. So that is a problem called external fragmentation. So in the future also, the 0th block and 8th block and 11th block might not be used for the file allocation. So those blocks will be left over, and that block's memory will be wasted. That external memory wastage is called as external fragmentation. Okay. So these are the two problems. It is very difficult to find the free contiguous blocks is the first problem in the contiguous memory allocation. And the second problem is external fragmentation. And what are the advantages then? These two are the disadvantages. Then what are the advantages of contiguous memory allocation? So the first advantage is it is very simple. Why? Because if the contiguous blocks are available, then immediately all the file content is available in the contiguous memory location. Okay. And the next one, what is the second advantage? Anyone is willing to go for a sequential file access. What is sequential file access? There are there are two types of accessing methods. One is random access or direct access, and the second one is a sequential access, and the last one is a indexed access, right? So sequential access means we want to access the files byte by byte or block by block. If we are reading the information block by block, or if you're writing the information block by block, then it is called as a sequential access. Here all the files, if you observe here in the example, so A requires 3 blocks. So all the blocks are contiguous. If you want to read the file A, then automatically what we will do, we will read the information from block A1 and then block 2 and then block 3, sequential access. Okay. If you want to read the file B, then what you need to do, you need to read 6th block and then immediately 7th block. Like that, all the information of a file is available in the contiguous manner. Okay. So that is the reason why contiguous memory location is best suited for sequential access. Simple and sequential file access are the advantages, and then external fragmentation and finding the free continuous blocks is the another problem in contiguous memory location. Okay. And next, what is the second variety? The second variety is a linked allocation. Linked allocation method. So as the name indicates, each block has a pointer field to the next free block. I repeat, each and every block has a pointer to the next free block. This is the hard disk. Likewise, 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So these are the blocks and this is the hard disk. What is the problem in the linked allocation? Sorry, what is the linked allocation? In the case of linked allocation, each and every block has a pointer field and points to the next free block. I got my point. So here is a file allocation table. File allocation table contains the information about the files. I already told you in the last class. What is a file allocation table? File allocation table maintains the information about the files. So for example here, so there is file A and next where it starts. It starts at first block maybe, and where it ends. Maybe it ends at 6th block. So earlier it was start and length. Earlier it was start and length. Now it is start and end block. This is a starting block number and this is a ending block number. And next coming to B file. It might starts at 7th block and it may be end at 10th block. Okay. How can we know that? So in the linked allocation, so first where it starts, file A, where it starts, this is the hard disk. The first one is a file A. Where it starts at first link, and the second link will be might be the block number 2, and the third link may be the block number 5, and the next link is the block number 6. And if we go to the block number 1, it contains a pointer field. It points to the next block of file A. What is the next block? Second block. And the second block contains a pointer field, and it points to the next block of file A, and next it contains a pointer field and it points to the next block which was assigned to file A, that might be 6. If you go to the 6, the pointer field points to the null. The last block points to the null. Why? Because this is the last block which was allocated to file A. Like that, each and every block maintains a field pointer and it points to the next block which was allocated to the file. Likewise, for file A, operating system allocates 4 blocks. It will start at first block and it points to the next block, that is second block, and the second block points to the next block, fifth block, and it points to the next block called sixth block, and the sixth block points to the null. Why? Because this is the end of the block. Likewise, coming to next one, that is called as a file B. So file B, where the file B starts, file B start at 7th block. Okay. So if you go to the 7th block, so obviously 7th block might point to the next block which was assigned to B. It may be a 9. If you go to the 9th block points to the next block which was allocated to file B. It may be a 10. Okay. So obviously if you go to the 10th block, it will point to the null. Why? Because it is the end of the file. So it points to the null. Likewise, so each and every block maintains a pointer field and which points to the or linked to the next block which was assigned to the file, and it will link to the next block which was allocated to the file. Likewise, will move until the last block, where the last block which was assigned to the file is pointed to the null. Why? Because that is the end of the file, end of the block. Okay, that is the thing. That is a end block, last block, not end of the block. Okay, is it clear for you all? So this is about linked allocation. So what are the advantages of linked allocation and what are the disadvantages of linked allocation? If you observe here, so there are 0th block available and third block available and fourth block available. So okay, here there is no external fragmentation problem. Why? Because for example, there is a file called C. It may start from 0th location and it may end at the fourth location, fourth block. That means the C file may be start at 0 and it may be pointed to next 3 and 3 will be pointed to 4. That means the leftover blocks also utilized because of this linked connection. Okay. So there is no external fragmentation. No external fragmentation. That is the advantage of linked allocation. And next, what are the other advantages? The linked allocation is also best suited for the sequential files. Okay, we can move here and then we next block. So wherever it points, we move to that particular one after the other. And the next one, disadvantages. What are the disadvantages of linked allocation? In the case of linked allocation, the main disadvantage, so memory required for maintaining the pointer. Here each and every block maintains a pointer field which points to the next block. So for that purpose, each and every block need to maintain a pointer. So memory was wasted for maintaining the pointer. So on the next one, it takes much access time. So traverse time is more. Why? Because first we need to go for the first block and then we need to move to the second block and then fifth block and then sixth block. So from second block to fifth block and fifth block to sixth block, and then from seventh block to ninth block. In the for file C, we need to move from 0th block to third block and third block to fourth block, like that. So the all the information is not at one place, right? So the entire file blocks are scattered in the disk memory. So we need to move from one block to another block. So for that it takes much time. If it is a contiguous allocation technique, so all the file blocks are side by side so that we can read the file in a faster manner. But when compared to the linked allocation, so that is the reason why traverse time is more. So this is a second disadvantage. Okay, this is about linked allocation. And the next one is the third one. Indexed allocation. So what is indexed allocation? So as the name indicates, we will maintain one index block. Okay, that block maintains, this index block maintains information of blocks. That means information about blocks means block number. Block numbers assigned to a file. That means every in the case of linked allocation, each and every block need to maintain a pointer, right? There is a memory wastage, right? But coming to index allocation, what we will do? So we will do maintain one index block. So that block, if you go to that block, it will give you the information about the number of blocks which was assigned to the file. So for example, this is the hard disk and these are the blocks. Right? So what about the file allocation table? This is the file A and next index block. We no need to mention about the starting block and ending block or starting block and length. So we no need to maintain such information. Only for file A, we will maintain the index block 0 and the file B, the index block is 9. Okay, if you go to the 0th block, the 0th block will maintain the information about all the blocks which were assigned to file A. If you go to 0th block, the 0th block will maintain the information about all the blocks which were allocated to file A. Maybe block number 1, block number 4, block number 5. These three things are allocated to file A. So 0 to 1 and then 0 to 4 and then 0 to 5 and maybe 8th block also. So 0 to 8. If you go to the 0th block contains the pointers to all the blocks which were allocated to file A. And then if you move to file B, so what is the index block? 9th block. If you go to the 9th block, so it will maintain the information about block numbers which were assigned to file B. Maybe 6, 10, 11. So if you go to the 9th block, it will have a pointers to 9th block, 10th block and then 11th block. Likewise, one index block will have the information about all the file blocks which were allocated to the particular file. So that is about indexed allocation. What are the advantages of indexed allocation? It will support both the sequential and direct access. And the next, no external fragmentation. In every block, there is no need to maintain a what it is called as pointer field. Why? Because only one block maintains all the information of a file block which were allocated to the file. So no external fragmentation. And when file size increases, what happened? When file size increases, automatically here the number will be more. Automatically it will point to the other blocks. That's simple. Just the block numbers are added to the file size increases. What will happen? For example, here the B file size may be increased. 2 more blocks may be required. So what are the 2 more blocks? We'll mention here. It may be a 8th block and it may be a 7th block. Like that we will include the block numbers here and we will point to that particular blocks. That's it. Here, sorry, not 8, it may be a 7. Why? Because 8 was already allocated to 5A. Okay? That's it. That much simple. Or still increases, we will add another number 3. So automatically from the 9 we'll point to 7 and we'll point to 3. So that much simple. Even the file size grows also, there is no problem. Why? Because just we include the numbers into the index block and then we can have a pointer. That is about indexed location. So all these three things are comes under file allocation methods. Okay, the first one is contiguous allocation and the second one is a linked allocation, third one is a indexed allocation. So do you have any doubts regarding this? Okay, so I will move to the next concept called as free space management. So what is free space management? That means, so I already told you, operating system allocate blocks to the files. Just now we have got the clarification. So what are the allocation methods we have, and next how the operating system allocates memory, or how the operating system allocates blocks for the file. Once the file is deleted, what happened? Once the file is deleted, the memory block which were allocated to the file will be freed. Okay, so the operating system has to manage that free space. Once the file is deleted, so the operating system has to deallocate the memory from the file. Once the file is created, the operating system has to allocate the memory to the file. Once the file is deleted, the operating system is responsible for deallocating the memory which was allocated to it earlier. I repeat, whenever the file was created, it is the responsibility of the operating system to allocate secondary memory to the file. That means it has to assign some blocks. Whenever the file is deleted or removed, then automatically whatever the memory allocated to it earlier, that memory need to be deallocated by the operating system. So the operating system is responsible for both the allocation of the memory, secondary memory, and deallocation of the secondary memory, right? So that is the reason why it is the responsibility of operating system for managing the free space. Okay, so there are 4 techniques. The one is a bit vector or a bitmap, and the second one is linked list, and the third one is counting, and the fourth one is grouping. So these are the 4 varieties, 4 techniques, sorry. Bit vector or bitmap, linked list, counting, grouping. So coming to first one, bit vector. So as the name indicates, each and every bit represent each and every bit of a block represent whether the block is free or the block is occupied. Each block is represented by a bit. What is bitmap? Each block is represented by a bit. If it is 1, that indicates the block is free. If the bit is 0, if bit is 1, it indicates the block is free. If the bit is 0, it indicates the block was not free and it already allocated. Okay, like that each and every block, 0th block, first block. So 1 second. 0th block, first block, second block, third block, fourth block, fifth block, and then sixth block, seventh block, and then eighth block. So these are the blocks. So for example, each and every bit indicates whether the block is free or the block is occupied. So if you observe here, these are the bit vector. This is bit vector, right? 0th block, free or not free. Why? Because the bit number is 1. And the first block, 0. That means it is not free. And second block, it is free. Why? Because the bit number is 1. 0, not free. 0, not free. 1, it is free. 1, it is free. 1, it is free. So like that, the block number is used to represent the whether the block is free or the block is occupied. That is the first variety. So that by observing this bit vector, operating system came to know which of the blocks are free and which of the blocks are allocated. Right? That is about bit vector. So what is the advantage of bit vector? It is very simple to implement and it takes less memory. So what are the advantages? Very simple to implement, and the next one, less memory required. So why less memory required? So only we need to maintain 1 bit of information. So one bit holds very less memory, right? So just 1 or 0. If it is 1, the block is free. If the block is represented with 0, then the block is occupied by some other file. So likewise, so all the blocks who are having 1 bit representation, they're all free. Like that, operating system came to know which blocks are free and which blocks are occupied. And the next one is a linked list allocation. So coming to linked list allocation, each block has a pointer to the next free block. Each block has a pointer field which points to the next free block, right? For example, so this is the hard disk. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11. So what the operating system will do? So operating system will, if the operating system follows the linked list, so it has to tell us where the free blocks are available. So each block has a pointer field which points to the next free block. In this technique, for example, the first block will point free block points to the next free block, and the next block points to the next free block. It points to the next free block. It points to the next free block, and it points to the next free block. Like that, each and every free block has a pointer to the next free block. Next free block in this example may be 2, and if we go to the second block, it has a pointer to the next free block, maybe 5, and if we go to the fifth block, it points to the next free block, maybe 8, and if we move to the eighth block, it points to the next free block, maybe 9, and next it points to the next free block, maybe 10. There are no other free blocks available, so the 10th block is pointed to the null. Null means that is the last free block. That means it is a last free block. Like that, each and every free block has a pointer to the next free block, and the last free block will point to the null. Okay, so that is about a linked list. So but here we need to maintain a pointer in each and every free block, so that wastes some memory in the free block. Okay, and the next one, counting. So in the previous technique, in the bit vector, only we need to maintain a bit information for representing whether the file is free, so whether the block is free or not, just a bit information. But in the case of linked list, we need to maintain a pointer field. Okay, and the next one, counting. So what about counting and what about grouping? Counting means, in addition to the next free block pointer, so we'll keep a pointer saying how many blocks are contiguously free after the block. How many blocks are contiguously free? Grouping means here it is also similar to the linked list. But in the case of linked list, all the blocks may not be contiguous. If it is a grouping, what indicates, for example, if you are at first free block 1, free block number 1. So what it will say? So I have, it say that, it is saying that the number 2. So why? Because 1 and 2 are contiguous here. So because of that reason, these two are contiguous free blocks. Like that, the sorry, if it is a counting, what it will do? Counting is similar to the linked list. Sorry. Counting is similar to the linked list. Counting means the first free block will keep the information about the contiguous free blocks after it. So for example, if in this particular example, let's say, if it is a contiguous allocation, what it will be look like? If it is a counting, for example, this is a free block, for example. So what it will do? So after me, how many number of blocks are free? So that count will be maintained by the free block. So it will maintain the information about 1. That means after it, only one free block available. Coming to 8. So for example, 8th block, 9th block, 10th block, these 3 are free. Then 8 will maintain the 3. Number 3, count 3. That indicates including 8, 8, 9, 10. These 3 blocks are free contiguously. Okay. Like that, each and every block will maintain the count of the next contiguous free blocks. Okay. So that is called as counting. I repeat, each and every block will maintain the count. Count means the number of free contiguous blocks after it. If there are no continuous blocks after it, obviously the number is 0. If the next there are some contiguous free blocks available, then automatically it will maintain the number. So we need to include that block that block also while counting the free blocks. For example, 8th is a free block, 9th is a free block, 10th is a free block. What 8 will maintain? 3. Why? Because including 8, it will be three. 1, 2, 3 contiguous free blocks are available. But in the case of linked list, the free blocks may not be contiguous. First one block is free, second block is free, and then 5, and then 8, and then 9, and then 10 in the previous example. That means all the free blocks may not be contiguous, right? But in the case of counting, so the block need to um, mention the number of free blocks, mention the number of contiguous free blocks after it. So that is about counting. And next, what about grouping? So grouping means each block stores the address of n minus 1 free blocks in the first free block. That indicates like it is like indexing. So if it is a grouping, so grouping is like indexing. Counting is like linked list. Grouping means each block maintains, each block means each free block, one free block. The one free block maintains the information about n minus 1 other free blocks. One free block maintains the information of n minus 1 free blocks in the disk. That is called as group. And if you go to the particular block, so automatically it will maintain the other n minus 1 free blocks information. So for example, here in this example, if we go to the one block, this is a free block. The free block maintains the information about n minus 1 other free blocks. So why it is mentioned like n minus 1? For example, if the total number of blocks are n, one block is maintaining the information of the remaining free blocks, right? That is the reason why it is called as n minus 1. Each free block maintains n minus 1 free blocks. And if we move to the 0th block, 0th block is, for example, free block. So if you go to that block, it will maintain the number of all the free blocks. That means if you go to 0th block, it may indicates like what are the free blocks. Maybe second block is free, fourth block is free, sixth block is free, eighth block is free, like that. The 0th block maintains the n minus 1 other free blocks in the disk. Okay, this is about free space management. So there are total 4 techniques. One is a bit vector, and the second one is a linked list, third one counting, fourth one grouping. Bit vector means each block is represented by a bit. If the bit is 1, the block is free. If the bit is 0, the block is allocated. So a very simple technique, and it requires less memory. So what about linked list? Each block has a pointer field. The first free block points to the next free block. The next free block points to the next free block, like that, so on. The last free block will point to the null. And if it is a counting, the first free block will maintain the information of the contiguous free blocks after it. If it is a grouping, so one free block maintains the information of remaining 9 minus 1 free blocks in the disk. That is about grouping. Okay, so this is about free space management. So do you have any doubts? Let me know. Do you have any doubts? So far we completed 2 topics. The first one is a file allocation method, and the second one is a free space management. So do you have any doubts? Let me know. Otherwise, I will move to the next concept. That is called as a mass storage device. Overview of mass storage system. So in this particular chapter, we need to talk about mass storage system, disk scheduling, and device drivers. So I will complete mass storage structure and disk scheduling now. If the time permits, I will move to the device drivers. So hopefully time is not sufficient to discuss about the device drivers. So let me talk about the overview of mass storage structure and then disk scheduling. Right? So this is the structure of a disk, mass storage. So why it is called as a mass storage device? So because it can hold maximum information. We can store gigabytes of information in the disk. Now we can store terabytes of information in the disk. So because of that reason, it is called as a mass storage device. And next, if you observe the diagram, there are so many number of things to discuss. So follow the cursor. So here the circle shape one, this one is called as a platter. So this is one platter and this is another platter and this is another platter. So these particular circular shape, one is called as a platter. Okay, and all these platters are connected to a rod called as a spindle. This straight line is called as a spindle. So the spindle will rotate. Whenever the spindle will rotate, automatically these platters will be rotated. The platters connected to it will be rotated. Okay, so the if you observe here, again the entire circle is subdivided into other circles. This is one circle, internal circle, and then one more circle. Like that, the entire platter is divided into different circles. Okay, those circles are called as tracks. If you observe here, those tracks are again divided. Those tracks are again divided. So they are called as sectors. Okay, I repeat here. So the circle is called as a platter. Like that, we have n number of platters here. All these platters are connected to a spindle rod. Okay, if the rod rotates, automatically these platters will be rotate. That is the first point you need to understand. And the next one, so these platter is again one more circle is here, and internal inner circle is here, and then after that outer circle is here. Like that, the platter is divided into n number of circles. Okay, so those circles, internal circles, are called as a tracks. Those tracks are again divided. Boxes are there now. So those are called as sectors. That means the entire platter is divided into tracks and the tracks are subdivided into sectors. All these platters are connected to a spindle. If the spindle rotates, the platters will rotate. So on the next point here, what we need to discuss is cylinder. Cylinder means all these platters are, cylinder is nothing but, cylinder is nothing. What is a cylinder here? The cylinder is nothing but all the tracks at the same radius. If you observe here, this is the track. This is one track. Similarly, in the platter 2 also, this is the track with the same radius. And if you move to the third platter also, this is the track with the same radius, right? So if we join all the tracks together at the same radius, then it is called as a cylinder. It is look like a cylinder. Cylinder is nothing but tracks at the same radius of different platters. So this is a platter 1, this is platter 2, and this is a platter 3. So all these things we are connected to form like a cylinder. That means all the tracks at the same radius. So there are n number of tracks, so that there are n number of cylinders. Why? Because if you observe here, it may be a inner track. If we join to this particular inner track, and from there we can join the inner track, so then it will form like a inner cylinder, and then next cylinder, like that. The tracks at the same radius will form a cylinder. Okay, and the next one, coming to arm assembly. Arm is nothing but, so each and every platter is a coated. Okay, it is coated with a magnetic material. All the platters are coated with a magnetic material, so that we can store the information in the disk. For example, if we want to read the information from the platter, so automatically the reader, with the help of these read write head, we can access the information. That means we can read the information and we can write the information. So these read head is moving like this, and these platters are uh, rotated with the help of a spindle. So automatically, whenever you want to read the information available at this place, but the read write head is at this place. So automatically, whenever you want to read the information which is available in this particular sector, this dark area you want to read, for example, then automatically what will do? The spindle will automatically rotate. Whenever the spindle rotate, automatically the platter will rotate. So the platter will come under the read write head. Whenever this particular location comes under the read write head, then automatically with the help of that read write head, we can access the information. Are you got my point? So in order to read the information or in order to write the information to the platter or the disk, so what we have to do, then the particular position need to be under the read write head. All these read write heads are connected to the ARM assembly. Okay. And next, as a diagram indicates, each platter is in a circular shape. And next, one more thing, these particular platters are two surfaces platter. And next, top surface and the bottom surface. So both the things are covered with a magnetic material. So we store the information by recording it magnetically on the platters. Okay. And next, if we observe here, so you want to read the information available in the sector here, dark portion. Now the read write it is here. So in order to read the information at this position, what you need to do? You need to rotate this particular one, and first you need to move to the particular track, and then you need to move to the particular sector. Okay. So it takes some time to rotate the disk to the particular track, and then we need to move to the particular sector. So it takes some time, right? So that time is called as random access time. So random access time is a combination of seek time and rotational latency. So these are the very important terminology you need to understand. What is seek time, positioning time, or random access time? What is the positioning time or random access time? I repeat once again for you. Now the read write head is in this particular position in this track. Now we want to read the information in this particular track in this particular sector. So what you need to do? So the spindle has to rotate and this particular position has to come under the read write head. So in order to move the disk and in order to move that particular track and particular sector under the read write head, it takes some time. So that time is called as um, random access time. So the random access time is a combination of seek time and rotational latency. What is seek time? Seek time means in order to move the disk arm to the desired cylinder, first you need to move to the desired cylinder, that means desired track, and then we need to move to the desired sector. So in order to move to the desired sector, it takes some time, that is called as rotational latency. In order to move to the particular desired cylinder or track, it takes some time, that is called as a seek time. So in order to read the information under a particular track in a particular sector after the particular track, so it takes some time. So we need to move to the track first and then we need to move to the particular sector. So move to the track, it takes some time, it is called as a seek time, and move to the particular sector, it takes some time, that is called as rotation latency. So seek time plus rotation latency is called as random access time. Okay. And then there is one more important terminology here, that is called as a transfer rate. Transfer rate means the rate at which the data transferred from drive to the computer, how much time it takes, how speed the data is flow between the drive and the computer. So that is called as a transfer rate. And next, drives are rotate at 60 to 250 times per second. Usually the drives are rotate at 60 to 250 times per second. Okay, as you know very well, the disk may be having some bad blocks, or sometimes the disk may crash. So there is a worst scenario that is very bad. So if there is any problem happened for the magnetic material, so I already told you the platters are coated. The platter surface is coated with the magnetic material. If anything happened to the magnetic material and the magnetic material spoiled, once it gets spoiled, we cannot get the information from that particular portion. That means it is called as a head crash. So if the head crash happened, we cannot use the disk again. Okay. And the next one, disks can be removable. How can we connect the drives to the computer? So all these drives are connected. So connected to the computer via IO bus. So there are different varieties of cables to connect the drives to the computer. So these are the things. It may be ATA, SATA, USB, fiber channel, SESI, SAS, and Fireware. These are all the buses in order to connect the drives to the computer. Okay, drives are rotated 60 to 1 to 50 times per second, and the transfer rate is called as the rate at which the drive information flow from drive to computer. Positioning time or random access time is a combination of seek time and the rotational latency. Seek time means in order to move to the particular cylinder or the track, and next rotation latency means in order to move to the particular sector in the track. So the combination of these two times is called as random access time. So head crash is the worst situation where the magnetic material gets damaged. So once the magnetic material which was coated to the platter get damaged, we cannot retrieve the information, or we cannot access the information. Even we cannot perform read operation or write operation. Okay, disk can be removable, and next the drives are attached to the computer with the help of IO buses. So that is about overview of a disk. And then coming to tapes. So what are the difference between magnetic disk and the magnetic tape? So as I told you earlier, all the magnetic disks, as the name indicates, the platters will be coated with the magnetic material. A laser heat is used to amplify a large weak magnetic field to record a bit. Okay, internally what happened? So these are the platters, circular shape are called as the platters. The platters are coated with the magnetic material. So whenever the laser heat is used to amplify it, the magnetic field get record a bit. Okay, the laser light is used to read the data. Okay, so what happened when this, I already told you now, the laser heat is used to amplify a large weak magnetic field. So whenever the heat is more, then automatically what happened, the protective layer of a plastic or glass will be crashed. Once it is crashed, then the disk is not used to retrieve the information. And next, coming to magnetic tapes. So magnetic disk, when compared to magnetic disk, magnetic tape can hold much more information. So magnetic tapes are used to store more information. So what is the difference between a disk and a tape is a sequential access one. That means we need to read one block by another block, one byte by another byte, like that sequential only we can perform the operation. If it is a disk supports the random access, and you can move to the block number 12 and read the information immediately. You can go to the block number 50, there you can perform the operation. So disk supports random access, whereas tape supports sequential access. And the next difference is tapes are used for the backup purpose. Magnetic tapes are used for the backup purposes, and they usually hold large volumes of data when compared to disk. So disk and tape, which can hold a maximum amount of information? A magnetic tape can hold maximum information when compared to uh, disk. So that is the reason why magnetic tapes are called as a backup devices, and they can store large volumes of data. Okay. So that those are the differences between disc and tape. And one more thing, tape is magnetic tape is less expensive, whereas the disc is more expensive when compared to the tape. So I repeat the differences for you again. Magnetic tape is less expensive, disc is more expensive, and the magnetic tape is generally used for the backup purposes, and it holds a large volume of data when compared to the disc. And next, magnetic tape supports the sequential access, whereas the disk supports a random access. That is about overview of mass storage device. So this is the first disk drive. Observe the cursor. This much of size. The disk is of this much of size. This one. 1956 IBM's disk. And then coming to disk scheduling. So by this I will conclude the topic. So next one we need to discuss about the disk scheduling algorithms. So disk scheduling algorithm, before going to start about the disk scheduling algorithms, so you need to know where the initially the disk was pointed. This one. These are the problems you need to do. Here in our example, these are the disks 98, 183, 37, 122, 14, 124, 65, 67. So these are the disk blocks available. So if you want to allocate the blocks to the file, how the scheduling will be done by the operating system. So there are n number of ways. In the first one is a FCFS. FCFS means first come, first serve. FCFS means first come, first serve. Where initially we are at the 53. That means the head starts at 53. Read write head is at 53th location. So if it is a first come, first serve. So these are the block numbers available in the queue. So automatically, as the name indicates, first come, first serve. So we need to start from 53, and then what is the next one? 98. So 53 to 98 we have to move. And then from 98 to what is the next one? Next block? 183. From 98 to we need to move to the 183. And then from 182 to 82, 37. Follow the cursor. So 183 to 37. And then we need to move from 37 to 122. 122. And then we need to move from 120 to 14. So 122 to 14. And then we need to move from 14 to 124. And then we need to move from 124 to 65. And then we need to move from 65 to 67. So what happened? What is the problem with the first come first serve? The problem is with the first come first serve means it has many head movements. So how many number of cylinders we need to move? The total 640 cylinders we have to move. How the 640 will come? 53 to 98. What is the value from 53 to 98? 53 to 98 means it is around 45. 53 to 98 means 45 plus 98 to 183. That means 85 cylinders. And then from 183 to 37 means it is 146. And from 37 to 122 means 85 cylinders plus 120 to 14. That means 108. And then 14 to 124, 110. And then 124 to 65, that is 59. From 65 to 67, 2 cylinders. So if we add all those things together, we will get 640 cylinders. And if you go for a FCFS, how many number of cylinders we have to move? The read write head has to move 640 cylinders. So that is FCFS. So it is a time taking one, right? In order to solve that problem, we'll move to the SSTF. So what is SSTF? SSTF full form is shortest seek time first. So shortest seek time first means it selects the request with the minimum seek time from the current head position. shortest seek time first selects the request with the minimum seek time from the current head position. Okay, that means initially we are at the 53. So from the 53, among all these things, all these cylinders, which one is nearer to the 53? Which one is nearer to 53? 65 is the nearer to 53. That is the reason we are moving from 53 to 65. Okay, now we are at 65. So which cylinder is near to the 65? 67. So from 65 to 67. Now we are in the 67th cylinder. Which cylinder is near to the 67th cylinder? 37th cylinder is the next one. So we move to 67 to 37. So once we move to the 37, which one is the next nearer? 14 is the next nearer. So 14. We move to the 14. So when we move to the 14, what are the remaining available? 98, 122, 124, 183. So the leftovers are 98, 183, 122 and 124. Which one is near to 14? Obviously 98 is near to 14. So from 14 to 98. So once we move to the 98, what are the leftover cylinders? 122, 124, 183. So from 122 we need to move to 124 and then we need to move to the 183 like this. Okay, if we are at 14, the leftovers are 98, 122, 124. So like that, every time we need to check the head position and what is the nearest cylinder to it. So, for example, initially you are at a 53. So for 53 cylinder, which one is the nearest? For 53, 65 is the nearest. So that is the reason we are moving from 53 to 65. 65 is already over. And then for 65, which one is nearer? 67 is the nearer. That is the reason we from 65 to 67. So now the head position is at 67. So from 67, which one is nearer? Obviously, in the remaining things, 37 is the nearer. So that is the reason we moved to 37. Like that, from each and every cylinder, like that, each and from every movement from one cylinder to another cylinder, we need to check which is the nearer to it, which cylinder is near to the head position. So we move to the that cylinder. That is about SSTF. If we follow the SSTF, how many cylinders we need to move? 236 cylinders we have to move. If it is the FCFS, we need to move to the 640. In the in the FCFS, there is um, um, no way of identifying whether the cylinder is near to it or the cylinder is far away to it, where the head position. We no need to worry about all these things. Simply the head is at 50th, 53 position. Immediately we need to start from 98, from 98 to 120, 183, and then 37, and then 122, and then 14, and then 124, and then 65, and then 67. Like that we need to move. And then scan algorithm. So what is the scan algorithm? Scan algorithm will give you, so the disk arm starts at one end of the disk and move toward the other end. The disk arm starts at one end of the disk and moves towards the other end. That is the technique here. Moves to one end. That means, for example, if it is at the 53, it will move to the one end. That means it has to come to the 0 and then it will move to the other end. It will move to the one end. After that, it need to be moved to the other end. That is scan. Actually, 0th cylinder is not there in the list. But according to the scan algorithm, scan scheduling algorithm, we need to move to the one end and we need to forward to the other end. So we are at the head starts at 53. That is the reason why I want to move to the one end. One end means I want to move towards the 0. So from 53 to 0, what are the cylinders available? 37 I need to go, and next 14th location I need to go. So from 53 to 37 and then 37 to 14, 0 is not there. but according to the scheduling algorithm, I need to move to the other end. So that is the reason why 0 from 14 to 0, and then 0 to I need to forward. So from 0, what is the next one? 37, 14 already over. So in order to move to the other end, what is the next one? 0 to 65 is the next one, and then 65 to 67, 67 to 98, and then 98 to 122, and then 122 to 140, 124, and then 124 to 183. Observe here, initially 53, 53 to 37, 37 to 14, 14 to 0. So we reached one end. From that moment, we need to go to the other end. What is the other end? So other end is a 183. So in order to move to the other end, so what are the things come in between? So 0 to 65, and then 67, and then 98, and then 122, and then 124, and then 183. 0 to 65, 67, 98, 122, 124, and then 183. So that is about scan. So what is about C scan? In the case of C scan, so we need to go to the dead end, and we need to come back to the 0, like that. So we need to cover the disk in a circular fashion. That is the reason it is called as a C scan. So initially we are at the 53 position. So we need to go to the dead end first. Earlier we moved to the 0th end, and then we go to the other end. Okay. But here in the circular scan, we need to move forward to the one end, and we need to come back to the complete other end 0. So we start at 53, and then 65, and then 67, 98, 122, 124, 183. 199 is a dead end, so 199 is not there in the list, in the queue, but still we need to go to the, according to the C scan, we need to go to the end of the disk. So end of the disk is 199 in our example, and then what we need to do, we need to come to the other end. Other end means 0. So from 199 to 0, and then from 0 we need to go to the 14, and then 37. That is about circular scan. Okay. So what is the difference between scan and C scan? In the case of scan, we need to come to the one end, and we need to try to move to the other end until the last cylinder, not the end of the disk. But in the case of circular scan, we need to start from 53, and we need to go to the dead end. 199 is a dead end here, and then we need to move to the 0th cylinder. That means that is the reason it is called as a circular scan. Why? Because we are touching the dead end at both the ends of the disk. And the next one is a C look. So in the case of C scan, in the case of C scan, we move to the dead end this end, and we move to the other end 0. So but in the case of C look, so what we will do, we'll start at 53, we'll move to the 65, and then 67, and then 98, 122, 124, and then 183. We no need to go to the disk end. So what is the last cylinder? 183. So we'll move to the 183. From the 183, again we move to the other end. In the other end, what is the lowest number? 14. So we'll move to 14, and then we'll come back 37. Okay. So that is about C look. So we are moving from this end to that end, but not to the dead ends. So in the case of circular scan, we touch the 199, and then we'll come back to 0, and then 14, and then 37. But here in this case of C loop, we'll move to 183. No need to move to the 199. Directly, once we touch the 183, if it is the last cylinder in the queue, automatically we'll move back to the 14, and then 37. No need to go to the 0th one, so that we can reduce some time. So whatever may be the algorithm, what you have to do, you need to count. So 53 to 65, how much? And then 65 to 67. So 53 to 65 means 65 minus 53. What is the value? 8. And then 8 plus 65 to 67, 2 plus 2, 8 plus 2, 10. Like that 67 to 98, how much? Like that 98 to 122, 122 to 140, 124, and then 124 to 183, and then 183 to 0, 0 to 14, sorry, 183 to 14 and 14 to 37. Like that we need to add the values. So whenever we are adding the values, we'll get the total number of cylinders we have moved. Okay, that is the thing. So these are the disk scheduling algorithms. So which disk scheduling algorithm you want to follow is depending upon your requirement. So all these are the disk scheduling algorithms available. So which one you have to follow is your wish. Okay. So what are all things? Let me list out. The first one is FCFS, first come first serve. That is, we need to move the read headed from one after the other. We need to follow the queue. First come first serve, we need to follow the queue in order to move the disk head. If it is shortest seek time first, so we need to move the disk from one disk head from one location to another list, another one cylinder to another cylinder based upon the shortest seek time. If it is a scan, we need to move to the one end and we need to start from that end. And next, if it is a circular scan, we need to touch the both the ends. And if it is a C loop, we no need to touch the dead ends. We need to go up to end of the last cylinder in the queue, and then we need to come back to the first cylinder in the list. 14 is the first cylinder this end. That is about C loop. Okay. So these are the disk scheduling algorithms. So just these device drivers are there. I will discuss in the next class. That is the last topic in your 5th unit. Thank you. Do you have any doubts? Let me know via the chat. Okay. So these are the topics we have covered today. So do you have any doubts? Let me know via the WhatsApp or you may call me. Today we have covered file allocation methods and then free space management and mass storage overview. In that we have discussed magnetic disk and then magnetic tape. So what are the difference between magnetic tape and magnetic disk? And then we had a discussion about disk scheduling algorithms. So the leftover topic is the device drivers. So already the time is over. So do you have any doubts? Let me know. Okay.